Welcome back, folks. I've got lasers on my mind today, so we're going to be digging into the MOPA fiber laser that Monport sent over a few weeks ago. I've been playing around with it for the last couple of weeks, and I think I've got most of the settings dialed in. One of them, though, that I'm still struggling with a little bit is the PEI. Trying to engrave some of the build plates for the printers so I can put my logo on the bottom of them or even offer them as custom products to people. But PEI, well, you'll see it in a minute. Let's jump right over to the fiber laser. Still playing around with this a little bit. I have some material coming in. If you saw up here, there's some glass that I found around the shop that I'm going to be testing out on it. And I've still got this jank set up here. If you haven't seen how I did this, essentially I've got this 90-degree port here feeding inside of the Falcon. And then I've got another one on the other side mounted to the exhaust fan. So I can just turn that on and hook this up to it. It comes all the way over here, and it sucks the fumes out from what I'm doing over here on the fiber laser. And hey, our sign from Samcraft. Thanks, Sam. So one of the things that I wanted to test out on the fiber laser was engraving build plates. But this is the build plate to that guy over there, the Ender 3 Max Neo. Yeah. A little big for that, so I'm going to play around, I think, with an A1 mini size build plate. That should be about the perfect size for this. That one looks bad enough. I got Pet G stuck on this months and months ago. The only way to get it off and salvage use of this side so it wasn't all bulged out was to sand it. It was rough. So I think if I remove these, I can frame it out. We should be able to fit this entire build plate. Probably going to try it on this side first, maybe in an area where I didn't sand it so much. It'd be pretty cool if we could get our logo on the bottom of our products. Now, the tricky part here is going to be getting this build plate underneath, I guess, and kind of lined up because it does want to slide underneath these little parts there. Guess that's going to be pretty good. Where's our, probably should turn the machine on, get our little laser. So this is the Monport GA60. It's a MOPA fiber laser. I have links down in the description below if you're interested in checking it out. There is also a discount code if you would like to purchase one for yourself. Super easy to autofocus. Basically, you put whatever you want to engrave underneath this little light here and press the autofocus button. It'll move the head up and back down, focus on the point that, well, this point here, and it's pretty accurate. I will say right out of the box, though, it was a couple millimeters off, just the calibration itself. So I was able to put the included ruler they send, essentially this thing right here. You set it on your piece, and then you can line up 325 millimeters. So obviously we are far too high. 325 millimeters would be right there, and we're looking for that number to be lined up with this line on the side. So I'm just going to hit autofocus, and then we'll check out how accurate it is. One thing you'll also notice is as it comes into focus more, these three dots here will become one dot. So we've got our dot there. You can see the laser is much lower down, and we can line it up and see how accurate we are. So in this case, it is a little bit off from where I want it to be. So I can either rotate this knob at the top or set this up, and we need to move the laser head down just a few clicks. So I can press the down button, and you can see that top is spinning as I press those buttons. Let's check our focus again. That looks spot on. And then if you press and hold the down and focus buttons at the same time for 5 to 10 seconds, that light will blink green 3 times, and that basically resets your autofocus distance. So every time you go and do it, it'll be 325 millimeters from that line to the surface of your material. All right, now we can engrave something. So I've just got our piece pushed over against the corner there, and I've got something pulled up on screen in Lightburn. And in case you're wondering if you need something super fancy to run this machine, let me show you how old this guy is. It's so old that it takes that long to turn on. There we go. Mid-2010 MacBook. I have upgraded the RAM in here from the 2 gigs or 4 gigs that it had to 8, which is the max that this can run. And I've also put a SSD in here instead of the mechanical hard drive. That's the only difference. Lightburn runs fine, Mac runs fine, gestures run fine. This isn't really about a MacBook, but you don't need anything fancy. As long as it's a Mac, I guess. If it's a Windows, I would probably use something newer. Those machines don't tend to last like these do. And this is almost 16 years old. Anyway, I got my buddy Zero's logo framed up here. You can see it projects the little frame around the outside there. Testing this out with 2 passes, 5,000 millimeters per second, 18% power. For those wondering, on the MOPA laser, you've got your frequency, your Q pulse. I'm not 100% certain exactly which direction to go, but I'm learning as I go along. And you can come in and do the material test, which will go up in speed, up in power, and 100 kilohertz, 300 Q pulse in that case. But that's not what this video is about. We are going to have a full video on getting this thing unboxed, set up, doing our first engravings on it, and all that good stuff coming out very soon. Stay tuned for that. But I'm just going to test this right now with Zero's little logo here. I'm going to kind of align this up a little bit better there. Click on our exhaust, put on our safety glasses, and press go. All right. So it engraved it, but I don't think it engraved it enough. So that was 2 passes, 18% power, 5,000 millimeters per second. Let's lower this to 3,000 millimeters per second. I'm going to bump this up to 20% power. Yeah, we'll leave flood fill on. Do have to move it. What's really cool about this is I can just press the arrow keys. So if I just press this down, it'll move it on screen, and it also moves where we're framing. Looks good. It's weird. It looks really cool from the side. And then as you kind of bring it up here, you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't quite get it. Let's try not flood fill and see what that does. Also going to raise or lower our frequency a little bit, up our power to 25. 2 passes, 25% power, 3,000 millimeters per second. I also kind of made this little prompt here so I don't accidentally forget to do anything. It's also good to have for safety. I guess the real question is, what does it look like when you try to print with it? Because we can engrave this all day at a bunch of different speeds and power settings. But if you know anything about these sheets, like even the slightest scratch in them can cause imperfections on the bottom surface. I'm wondering if this is a slight scratch enough to cause imperfections on the bottom surface. Or in our case, do exactly what we want. I don't know yet because I haven't played around with it enough and I have not printed with it enough, but that will be in an upcoming video because I think that's a really cool thing, not only for engraving your own stuff, but if you are somebody who's not really into 3D printing as much, is more into lasers, you could stock up on these and offer it as a service to people with 3D printers. So I've got this piece of slate here. It's probably about the maximum size that the fiber laser can engrave on, but I just want to use this for some testing. I figured out if you run 1 pass on this at a certain percentage, which we'll see here in a minute, you're able to get really nice engraving, clear engraving. But if you run it more than that, it'll actually eat into the slate and kind of give you more of an embossed effect. So I'm going to be playing around with both of those. I've got a bunch of pieces of slate here from some old roofing tiles, so we've got a lot to play with. So this one should be a pretty good test of just a light engraving on slate. As usual, I'm using one of my buddy's logos. Hello, Zero. So I've got it framed up in Lightburn over here. The settings that I'm going to use are on screen right now. 45% power, 4,000 millimeters per second speed, 100 frequency, 200 Q pulse, 500 lines per inch with cross hatching turned on at a 45-degree increment with flood fill. Well, that's enough information for you. Let's see how it looks. Super quick right there. That was real time. That's on there. That is awesome. I was concerned a little bit because it dips down here probably 4 or 5 millimeters. Maybe not quite that much, but it is dipping down. So I was concerned that maybe the laser's focal distance would be off, but that's really cool. What I want to try next is kind of embossing this logo into the slate. So I'll set it up over here. I'm going to jog it with the arrow keys on the keyboard, move it out of the way. And then I'm going to go into the settings and turn this up to, let's do like 70% power. We'll do this at 700 lines per inch. I'm going to do 4 passes on flood fill. See what that looks like. We can hit frame. It'll populate our logo up there. And then I can hit play. So it's not as clean, but it did go into the surface. Just a slight lip there. So if we bump the power up on this, maybe, can set that back into place. And let's try 80% power. Let's do 6 passes and frame it up. All right, and we'll hit go. That's more what I was looking for. I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera, but it definitely ate into the surface of the slate. Now, I don't know how useful this exact one is going to be. It is cool that it's it's got a lip there, some depth to it, but I think your best results are probably going to come from something similar to this. I've got another piece I just threw on here. The depth of this one is a little bit different, so I'm just going to re-autofocus. And this is just going to be our normal everyday settings. So this should do a nice light engraving on that top part there. And that is finished. Came out really clean. So that is going to be the maximum engraving size. Well, I could go a little bit more, I guess, if I took this piece off, but essentially this is going to be the maximum size that you're going to engrave on. About the size of your hand, or my hand, I guess. It's about 170-ish, 175 millimeter engraving area, so just slightly smaller than that of the A1 Mini bit. So that took 2 minutes exactly to do 2 passes on this piece here. And I'm honestly surprised it was able to get down into this crevice as good as it could. I mean, that's a pretty substantial drop off there. It came out really, really nice. I bet I could have even gotten away with single pass on this instead of using 2 passes. That would have essentially made it done in half the time. Let's see what else we can throw on here. I really love how Slate comes out, and Slate's cheap enough and I've got an abundance of it. So you're going to be seeing a lot of Slate on here. That was under a minute. 1 pass under 1 minute. Looks just as good as the 2 passes does. One thing I wanted to try was a process known as tiling. Now, I'm not going to do it in the traditional way that tiling would be done because the fiber laser can frame. So we should just be able to adjust it based off of the frame. But I have a longer image that I want to engrave on here that obviously won't fit on this full width. Let's see how that works. So the way that I have this set up is I've got a box drawn around one side, basically what we're going to be engraving. And then first I'm going to do what's known as a Boolean subtract. And that will get rid of everything inside of the box and leave me with our second engraving. So I'm just going to Command C on the keyboard to copy that. And then I can reverse back to this one and select the Boolean interaction of the 2 shapes. And that will leave me with what's inside of the box. I can paste our second engraving somewhere on the outside, and we will get to that one in a minute. For now, I want to frame this one up, see how it looks. Can hit frame and drop it down a little bit. You can even scale these. So if I select everything, I can scale it down a little bit to make sure everything still is going to fit. So that stuff should fit in this general area here. I could center it up a little bit more if I remove this, but I want something to reference off of. So I'm going to start out probably as far over to the left as I really can, because I don't know how much this is actually going to take up. I can only imagine about another one of these. So I guess there's nothing left to it but to do it. So I've got the first half of our engraving here. Looks great. What I need to do now is come into here and get rid of that guy and move this one into place. And we can frame that up. What I really need to see, so that's going to be under the hole command, and that basically takes the outside diameter. So we can see we're lining up pretty good already. What I'm going to do is move this exhaust over, I guess as best as I can. And I'm going to try to get this lined up as good as I can as well. I might be a little limited here. This might be our limiting factor up here. I can see that it's still slightly off, but I am at my max point here that I'm able to engrave. I'm going to take this off and see if we can't get this lined up. Well, I suppose we're going to find out. You can already see it looks like we were slightly off on this side. Yep. And we're slightly overlapping on that side. So I probably should have tilted it slightly more this way. So, I mean, overall, for our first attempt with manually lining it up, it is a little off. What I am seeing is that that's probably more related to the skew of the laser. So as it gets towards the outer bounding areas, the laser is sitting in one spot, so it is canted as it hits those outer areas. So I'm thinking that is what this is from. Since it's touching in the middle there, then as it gets towards these corners, which are the farthest points away from the beam, it is slightly lifted there. So to fix that, you could shrink the model or do it in multiple sections at a time instead of utilizing the entire bed. Overall, it can tile, it can get this long size. Just need to play around with that a little bit. And you could even go as far as adjusting some of the settings in here and doing some of the calibrations for the Galvo laser. I've gone through and done that and actually got them pretty good. I mean, that's maybe a 1/16 of an inch off at most up top, over the course of the laser beam hitting these four corners. So overall, I'm pleased with that. And the next one that I'm going to do is a little pocket knife. And you guessed it, I'm going to put my friend's logo on it. A little bit lighter down there and up there. Overall, that's a really, really clean engraving. That probably goes in about a 64th of an inch with those 4 passes. Took just under 2 minutes. What's cool now is I could flip it over and just line up that exact logo one more time and have the same thing on both sides. This time, I'm going to bump up the power a little bit and give it 2 more passes. See if we get a little bit of a deeper engraving. So you can definitely see that one is a little bit deeper. This was 85% power at 3,000 millimeters per second with 6 passes. I'm going to wash this off and see if the result comes out a little cleaner. So after washing it off, Looks really nice. We've got both sides now. I mean, and that's in there. That's never coming off. And of course, unless you engrave over it with something else. To do both sides of this, it took about 3 minutes. Not bad. So obviously, I have some more learning to do with the fiber laser. I'm more used to the CO2 more recently, and then before that, the diode laser. So still working on figuring out the different Q pulses and frequencies and all the settings that go along with the fiber laser. If seeing that fiber laser do its thing today made you want one in your shop, I have links down in the description below. And if you use my code MountainMaker at checkout, you can save, I believe it is 8%. It comes out to around $368 off the total cost of the GA60. If you're interested in seeing more of the Monport GA60, we will have a bunch of upcoming videos on it once I get more materials in to engrave on. And I'm going to be adding some of this stuff to Etsy. So if that is something that interests you, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And if you enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows you like this type of content. I want to say thank you to Monport for sending over their GA60 60-watt MOPA fiber laser for us to use in the shop. It has been a huge game changer for some of the stuff that I'm doing in here, including engraving some of my own products with my brand on them. Again, if you're interested in picking it up, links are down in the description below. Use my discount code and save $368 US. I will see you all in the next one, folks. Thanks for watching. Take care.